The first knock came at exactly 2:13 a.m. The second came 1 minute later, from the back door. I rented the cabin because I needed to get away. No people, no distractions, just snow, silence, and the kind of emptiness that might finally help me forget her. After the breakup, everything back home felt suffocating. Same streets, same routines, same ghost of a relationship in every coffee mug and pillow crease. So I booked a place in the Colorado mountains, secluded, cheap, off-grid. The listing described it as a restorative wilderness escape. No Wi-Fi, spotty cell service, a fireplace, a kitchenette, and an old record player. The cabin sat about half a mile from the road, down a narrow trail lined with pines. The nearest ranger station was 15 minutes away, by snowmobile, according to the info sheet. It was exactly what I wanted. The first 2 days passed uneventfully. I hiked a little, made soup, took photos of frost curling on the windows. The snowstorm rolled in on the second night. Thick flakes hammered the windows, and by midnight, everything was buried. I wasn't too worried. I had enough food, and I wasn't planning on leaving for a few days anyway. That night, I stayed up late editing pictures on my laptop. The fireplace crackled nearby. I had a lantern on, since the power kept flickering. There was something calming about the quiet. Just wind and wood settling. Then came the knock. Sharp, precise. 3 knocks. I froze, fingers hovering above my keyboard. The cabin was so remote. I hadn't seen another person since I arrived. The road was snowed in. Who the hell would be out here at 2 a.m.? I stood up slowly, heart suddenly racing, for no reason I could explain. I walked to the front door and peered through the peephole. Nothing. I waited a minute, pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing but wind. I figured it must have been a branch or something, falling against the frame. I bolted the lock anyway, and went back to the couch. At 2:14 a.m., the second knock came from the back door. I didn't even realize there was a back door until that moment. It wasn't visible from the kitchen or main room. It was tucked behind a wall near the old pantry, past the firewood bin. This knock was slower, heavier. 3 knocks again. Deliberate. I grabbed my flashlight, walked carefully to the back of the cabin, and stood in front of the door. It looked warped from age, with a frosted glass panel that let in the faintest outline of moonlight. I flicked on the flashlight and shined it out the glass. Nothing. No figure, no shadows. I cracked the door open an inch. Cold air surged in and bit my face. The snow out back was untouched. Pristine. No tracks, no indentation near the stoop. Just smooth, undisturbed white. I closed the door and locked it, suddenly unsettled. That should have been the end of it. But the next night, it happened again. Same exact time. 2:13, front door. 2:14, back door. This time, the knocks were slower, heavier, as if the person or thing doing it was less interested in alerting me and more interested in testing something. I didn't open the door that time. Didn't even get close. I just sat on the floor, staring at the front door with a kitchen knife in my hand. I don't know what I expected to do with it. My heart beat so loud, I thought it might drown out the sound if it knocked again. It didn't set. But that silence was worse. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I circled the cabin. Still no tracks. Not even animal prints. But as I came around the front porch, I saw them. Boot prints. Just one set, coming from the trees. They stopped about 5 feet from the front steps, then turned, walked to the side of the cabin, circled it, and vanished behind the snowbank at the back. No return path, no exit, just one loop, like someone had come right up, checked the place out, and left straight into the woods. I spent the rest of the day boarding the doors. I found old planks and nailed them across the frames with a hammer I found under the sink. I was done waiting to see if whoever it was wanted to do more than knock. The night after, I stayed awake with the fire stoked high. I tried to call the ranger station, but the landline was dead. My cell flickered. One bar, then none. I couldn't even get GPS to load. I thought about hiking out, but there was no chance in that snow. Not at night. I didn't hear any knocking that night. And somehow, that made it worse. By the next evening, I was exhausted. My nerves were shot. I barely ate. I barely moved. Sometime after midnight, I must have nodded off on the couch. I woke up to silence. Not just silence, emptiness. No wind. No fireplace crackle. No creaking from the old beams. It was like the air itself was holding its breath. For the first time in days, there was no knock. I sat up slowly, unsure what had even pulled me from sleep. Something was off. I walked to the kitchen to heat water, eyes heavy, trying to convince myself it was over. Then I saw the front door. It was wide open. Snow blew in gently across the floor. I stood frozen, not understanding at first what I was looking at. Then I saw the print. Just one. A single boot print in the snow, right in the middle of the doorway, leading inward. But there was no trail outside. No second print. No drag. No exit. Just that one mark, as if someone had stepped through the doorway and never left. My body went cold. Truly cold. Not the kind you feel on your skin. Something deeper, like my blood understood before my brain did. I didn't grab anything, not even shoes. I ran. Through the snow, down the trail, slipping, falling, scraping my palms raw on bark and ice. I made it to the road, found a ranger on patrol. Could barely talk. When I went back a day later with an officer, everything was undisturbed. Doors shut, fire out, cabin cold but whole. No prints, no sign of a break-in. Just my things, exactly where I left them. I never went back. A few weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I contacted the Forest Service and asked about the cabin. They forwarded me an old maintenance log. The last entry was dated 2003. It read, "Tenant left mid-stay. Claims someone knocked nightly. All doors found open next day. No prints in snow." The girl never blinked. She just stared past me and whispered, "Can you let me in?" It started on a rainy Thursday night, one of those slow, dragging evenings when the house is too quiet and the shadows stretch a little too far into the corners. My son Noah was already asleep upstairs, and I was curled on the couch, scrolling mindlessly through my phone with the TV murmuring in the background. Then the knock came. 3 gentle raps, not loud, not urgent, just polite. I froze. It was almost 10 p.m., and we don't get visitors that late. Not in our neighborhood, not since the divorce. I set my phone down and peeked through the peephole. It was a girl, 16, maybe 17, soaked to the bone. Her hair hung in clumps across her pale cheeks, and her thin hoodie stuck to her arms like wet paper. She wasn't facing the door, just standing there with her head down. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain on. "Hey, are you okay?" She lifted her head just enough to meet my eyes. Her expression was blank, not scared, not upset, just still. "Can you let me in?" she asked, barely above a whisper. I blinked. It's steps pouring. "Do you need help? I can call someone." "Can you let me in?" she said again. Same tone, same rhythm, as if that was the only sentence she knew. Something about her voice. It didn't match her face. It felt practiced. I tightened my grip on the door. "Look, I can call the police, or a cab if you're in trouble." She took one slow step forward and stopped right at the threshold. Not crossing, just standing there. That's when I noticed her shoes soaked through, but her socks were dry. I closed the door, locked it. I stood there, hand on the knob, listening. No knock, no footsteps. I waited a few minutes, then peeked again. She was gone. I didn't sleep much that night, just laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, every creak of the house stretching my nerves thinner. By morning, I told myself it was just a weird encounter, maybe a runaway, maybe a prank. I told Noah nothing, just made his breakfast, sent him to school, and tried to move on. But the next night, it happened again. Same time, same knock, same 3 polite taps. I hesitated longer this time. I wanted to ignore it, but curiosity won. I looked. She was back. Same clothes, same expression. But this time, she wasn't set wet. Her hoodie and jeans looked exactly the same, still stuck to her skin like they'd dried stiff. Her hair clung to her head in the same exact pattern, like a photo that hadn't changed. "Can you let me in?" she said again. I slammed the door shut. Deadbolt, chain, everything. Then I called the police. They arrived 15 minutes later, walked the perimeter, asked me to describe her. Said there were no footprints, no sign anyone had been there. I stayed up all night. I checked on Noah twice. He was fine, until around 3:30 a.m., when I heard his door creak open. I rushed up and found him standing at the top of the stairs, barefoot and dazed. "Noah?" I asked gently. "She's already inside," he whispered, and turned back to his room. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I installed a motion camera above the porch. Nothing fancy, just a $50 model from the hardware store. Enough to give me proof. Enough to tell myself I wasn't crazy. That night, I put Noah to bed early and sat on the couch with the monitor in my lap. Sure enough, 2 minutes past 10, the motion alert chimed. I clicked the feed. She was there, standing perfectly still. Same clothes, same posture, no blinking. I watched, breath held, as she knocked. Then the feed glitched. A burst of static. The timestamp jumped ahead by 4 minutes. She was gone. No motion alert for her leaving. Just gone. I ran upstairs and checked on Noah. He was tossing in his sheets, murmuring. I reached for him, but his eyes snapped open, wide, terrified. "She was in my room," he said. "She just stood there. She didn't have any eyes." That was it. I packed a bag before sunrise and drove us straight to my sister's place. She lives 2 towns over, in a gated community. I didn't explain much, just told her I needed to stay for a few days. 3 nights passed without incident. No knocks, no dreams, no static. Then I had to go back for clothes and supplies. I left Noah with my sister and drove home, middle of the afternoon, telling myself it was fine. The house was cold. Too cold, like the heat had been off, even though the thermostat was still set to 70. The living room smelled faintly of mud. That sets when I saw them. Footprints. Inside the house. They started at the back door, not the front, and trailed in slowly. Wet prints on hardwood. I followed them, my heart in my throat. They led down the hallway, stopped outside Noah Sip's room, and vanished. I checked the porch camera. The footage from that night was completely corrupted. Blank screen. No sound. No timestamp. Just black. I haven't seen her since. We sold the house 2 months later, told the realtor we wanted to move closer to family. I never told anyone the truth, not even my sister. Noah doesn't talk about her anymore. But some nights, when I'm turning off the lights, I pause by the windows, and I swear I still hear it. 3 soft knocks, asking to be let in. He said he had the wrong house. But when I opened the door, he didn't look confused. I'd been living in that rental for maybe 2 months. It was a run-down 2-bedroom place near my grad school campus, tucked in a neighborhood mostly filled with retirees and quiet, overgrown lawns. I moved in with my roommate Mark because it was cheap and close to the university. Nothing fancy, but it worked. Peeling paint, creaky floors, one flickering hallway light that we never got around to fixing. Mark was out of town that weekend, visiting his girlfriend's family upstate, so I had the place to myself. I was up late that Friday night, grading papers and half watching something on TV. Around 11:30 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Not a bang, not urgent, just a steady, even knock. I figured it was a neighbor. Maybe someone had a package misdelivered or something. I got up, opened the door, and found a man standing there. Maybe late 40s, early 50s. Tall, gaunt face, sunken cheeks, eyes like glass. He wore a brown jacket, slightly too big for him, like he'd borrowed it. We stared at each other for a few seconds too long before he spoke. "Sorry," he said. "Wrong house." His voice was low, calm. He didn't blink. Then he turned around and walked away. Didn't rush, didn't glance back. Just walked down the street until I lost sight of him behind the hedge near the corner. I shut the door. Weird, but not unheard of. People get turned around. Maybe he meant to go next door or something. I went back to my laptop and forgot about it. Until it happened again the next night. Same knock, same time. I opened the door, and it was him. Same jacket, same dead eyes. Again, he said, "Sorry, wrong house." Then turned and walked off in the same direction. Same pace, no hesitation. I didn't sleep well that night. Couldn't shake the way he looked at me, like he knew me, like he wasn't wrong at all. On the third night, I didn't answer, but the knock came anyway. 11:30 p.m. on the dot. I sat still in the dark, listening, holding my breath. No second knock, just one, like he knew I was listening. I crept up to the peephole and looked. No one there. Then the knock came again. Right on cue, soft, deliberate. I jerked back from the door, heart racing. I bought a cheap motion-activated camera the next morning, one of those battery-powered ones you stick above your door. I set it up and aimed it at the porch. That night I waited. No knock this time. But when I checked the footage in the morning, it showed him, standing on the porch, not moving, not knocking, just standing, for an hour. At some point he tilted his head toward the camera, like he knew it was there. Then he turned and walked away. I sent the video to the police, filed a report. They were polite, but their hands were tied. "He hasn't made any threats," the officer told me. "If he enters your home, that sits different. But for now," I asked if they could send a patrol. They said they'd try. That was it. Mark came back from his trip a day later. I told him everything, showed him the footage, the timestamps, described the guy. He laughed. "Dude, it sets probably some drifter. Just ignore him." I wanted to punch him. That night, Mark was the one who answered the knock. I stood just behind him as he opened the door. The man stood there, exactly like before. No expression, no emotion, just watching. "Can I help you?" Mark asked, more annoyed than anything. The man leaned slightly forward and said, "You're not the one I talked to." Then he turned and walked off again. Mark didn't sleep so well that night. He packed a bag the next morning and said he'd crash with his girlfriend for a few days. Said he just needed a break. I stayed. Big mistake. That night, there was no knock. But at 3 a.m., the doorbell rang. I jolted awake, drenched in sweat. I knew it was him. I just knew. I didn't go to the door. I grabbed my phone, opened the camera app, and rewound the footage. And my stomach turned cold. The video didn't show the porch. It showed inside the house, the living room, the hallway, the kitchen. Each room, slowly, one after another. The image was jumpy, like someone was holding the camera close to their chest as they walked. Then it stopped. Outside my bedroom door, there was silence, then breathing, slow, controlled, and finally, the man's voice, calm and clear. This is the right one now. That was the last frame. The next morning, I packed everything I could fit into my car and left. I didn't call Mark. I didn't leave a note. I moved in with my cousin in another city, finished the semester online. I called the landlord a week later to break the lease. He didn't seem surprised. He said, "Last tenant left early too. Same reason, I think." Said there was a man who kept showing up. Said he claimed he used to live there. I didn't say a word. I haven't gone back. Haven't told anyone else, either. People love to explain things away. Stalker, prowler, prank. But deep down, I know that man wasn't confused. He wasn't lost. He wasn't sit at the wrong door. He was just waiting for it to be the right one.